2017 is going to be a volatile economic year. We may see politicians throughout the world attempting to control central bank policies. Several renowned financial analysts have warned that political interference in central bank policies may mean our economic misses of inflation and growth targets. Gold is an international currency that can't be issued or controlled by governments. If you don't have the only hard currency that has outlasted every politician and every failed idea of governments for centuries, you need to speak to Goldline right now and learn how easy it is to add gold to your portfolio or IRA. Now is the time to diversify your financial portfolio by adding gold. Call 1-800-913-GOLD. Buying real gold is easy and fast at Goldline. And you're going to be happy that you finally made the call. 1-800-913-4653. Goldline also offers price protection against short-term market fluctuations on qualifying purchases. So buy with confidence. Read Goldline's important risk information and find out if buying gold is right for you. Call Goldline. 1-800-913-4653.
Hello, America. Welcome to the program. We are so glad that you're here. We want to talk to you a little bit about Syria. Yesterday, I about blew a gasket with this bull crap that Donald Trump is now responsible somehow for Syria and the chemical weapons. I just like to take you back down the Samantha Power rose-covered lane. Do you remember her? Cass Sunstein's wife, the architect of Egypt and Libya and our entire Middle East strategy? Yeah, we're going to go over that here in a second. Also, possible war with North Korea, a big shakeup yesterday in the White House with Steve Bannon, and the latest on Bill O'Reilly. We begin right now.
Fusion of entertainment and enlightenment. This is the Glenn Beck Program.
Hello, America. Welcome to the Glenn Beck Program. Hey, who's in for war? Who's all excited to go to war with North Korea or Syria?
Or both.
Or both. Wouldn't that be great? That is looking more and more likely.
Yes, it is.
First of all, if we could go down memory lane a little bit with the Obama administration, Samantha Power, who is Cass Sunstein's wife, and she was the architect of this whole Middle Eastern policy. She was the architect for Obama with the Middle East and Israel, the Arab Spring. That she was all on board with that. She also was the architect on let's get rid of Assad, because Assad's just a really bad guy. So if we could have an Arab Spring in Syria, it'll work out really well. And then it was the Obama administration that also said, oh yeah, and we're getting rid of all of the chemical weapons. We're going to get rid of all of them. Let me just take you down memory lane.
Out of Syria without having initiated a strike. So what else are you talking about?
They've got the chemical weapons. We're getting the chemical weapons out of Syria.
Well, Chris, all you have to do is look at the fact that today, the final 8% of chemical weapons were taken out of Syria.
We should commend the administration for the result that they got. The removal of chemical weapons out of Syria is a substantial accomplishment.
We certainly worked with them in Syria to bring all the chemical weapons out of Syria.
We struck a deal where we got 100% of the chemical weapons out.
100% of the declared chemical weapons out of Syria.
We kept chemical weapons or got chemical weapons out of the area.
We got, as you know, last year, all the chemical weapons out of Syria.
As you know.
No small feat.
Syria eliminating its chemical weapons and ultimately having them destroyed by the international community.
Syria would still have a declared chemical weapons stockpile. Right now, they don't. Right now, Bashar al-Assad does not have a declared chemical weapons stockpile. And we removed that declared chemical weapons stockpile, and we destroyed that declared chemical weapons stockpile, which means that Bashar al-Assad can't use those chemical weapons against his own people.
Except he just did. That's the only problem with that.
Yeah.
Washington Free Beacon with that, putting that together, it's great.
By the way, Washington Free Beacon is very good. By the way, the reason why the White House went on that, hey, there's no more chemical weapons press junket, is because this is the country he drew the line in the sand. And he said, there's a red line, and you don't cross that red line. And then they crossed that red line, and we did nothing.
Well, we drew another red line, Glenn, and if they cross that one, we'll draw a third red line. And then if they cross that line, we'll draw another one.
So
as many as it takes.
The plan is to draw more red lines when they cross the previous red lines?
The current plan right now.
Okay.
And get them to remove all the chemical weapons.
So here's the thing. The reason why I'm bringing this up is I don't really care whose fault it is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to my children or your children or the children in Syria whose fault it is. But I will tell you, the revisionist history does matter. I'm not looking to place blame because it doesn't matter. It's what we're dealing with today. But the revisionist history has got to stop. This is not Donald Trump. I am not a fan of Donald Trump. I don't know if you've caught that. This is not Donald Trump's fault.
Gosh, he just got into office.
Right. This is the fault of the past administration saying we draw a bright red line and then doing nothing about it. And then lying about the chemical weapons. Period. That's what it is. Oh, and by the way, I could also throw a bone to the media for covering for them, for not holding the president's feet to the fire. You would have never done that. Where are the investigations going to go? Where are we going to hear from when are we going to hear from the media and the left about chemical weapons in Syria? Because the exact opposite happened. We went to war because of chemical weapons in Iraq, and there were no chemical weapons. How about this one? The administration said there were no chemical weapons. We got rid of them all. And you all carried water for them. We got rid of them all. And we got to pat ourselves on the back. And you did the patting. And now people died. Bush lied. People died. Obama lied. People died. Are we going to hear that? No. Why? Because the media has no intellectual honesty. And don't pat yourself on the back, people on the right, because quite honestly, the right has no intellectual honesty either. It's the same story, different side. Now, what are we going to do about it? Right now, they're deciding what we're going to do about it. And higher on that scale is North Korea. President, is it Xi? Is that how you say his name? Xi. I like to call him President XI. I like to call him 11, President 11, from China, is meeting in the White House today. And this is their number one priority, to talk about what's going to happen with North Korea. I am not one to say, hey, we should just sit around and see what happens with a guy who's crazy and has nuclear missiles. He now has solid fuel boosters. So we can no longer tell when they're fueling up for a missile. It's solid fuel. The door opens and it's launched. Now, I don't think he can make it to the United States, but he might. He could at least make it to Hawaii. I know, but why would an Asian nation
ever attack Hawaii?
Ever attack Hawaii?
Why would they do
ridiculous.
That? Yeah, it's just a beautiful vacation
It's not like
location.
a world war would ever really just start.
Paradise. You never.
Right.
Well, that's why we were saying,
paradise.
if you want to get make everybody safe, let's put like a bunch of our resources like in one harbor there.
Like all the ships we have in the Pacific,
yes,
put them
we'll
in
store
Hawaii.
Them all there where they're never going to attack.
Right.
And everything will be fine.
Right. So they could at least hit Hawaii. They could hit Japan. They could hit or South Korea.
South Korea, for sure.
And that starts a global war. Now, what are we going to do about it? I had a briefing from a guy who just left the CIA, I don't know, about 6 months ago. And he tried to convince me that things were far worse in the world than even I think. And he's a fan of the show. And I'm like, no, I don't think. And he's like, no, I listen to you, Glenn. It's much worse than you think it is. I'm like, okay,
wow.
that's not
happy.
good. That's
wow.
not good. And he said, I brought up North Korea, and I said, what do we do? And he said, we're out of options. We're completely out of options. He said, the problem is this guy is truly crazy.
Yeah, that's like, what that defector just said.
Right. He's like
high-level defector.
It's not like, Osama bin Laden, he's crazy. No, he wasn't crazy. He was very, very smart and well thought out. We just disagreed with him. Mm-hmm. He was just on the dark side, if you will. Mm-hmm. This guy is crazy. He believes that he can actually win a war against the United States of America. And he will launch. And he said, so that leaves us with what option? He said, we can't negotiate anymore. There's no negotiation. He said, there's nobody that we can reach out to because he kills everybody who disagrees with him.
I've been saying preemptive strike for a while. And maybe that's what you have to do.
I don't know.
You can't allow the guy to just continue to threaten us and just do
nothing.
We
not have a Patriot missile system that we could put for I know rockets, ICBMs, you don't want to miss.
I don't know that we have anything in place on the mainland, do we?
But I don't we should put one on there. Don't we have
certainly
something
give them
to
Israel, but I don't know if we...
Don't we have something in South Korea? Don't we have something that we can put on a ship that can intercept a missile? I mean, I don't want to do a first strike. I just don't want to do a first strike. Quite honestly, congratulations. I don't want to put this president in charge of war.
I know, that's hard.
I don't want him in charge of war. If it comes, it comes. Let's not hasten anything.
We saw this in the documentary Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, where we do obviously have at least that one weapon, Superman, to stop any nuclear launch.
Hey,
if he doesn't show up at the right time.
Could you write this down?
For example, there's this reporter that they're never in the same place at the same time. And if he's in the middle of a story, can we get Superman to stop these missiles? We don't know. Has Bannon addressed that? No.
Could we just do me a favor, write this down for a meeting today? I think you guys misunderstand the difference between, let's just put define documentary, and I'll remember that.
Okay.
You're listening to the Glenn Beck Program.
Mercury.
Are you as excited about your kids being online on the internet as I am? I feel like I'm always playing catch up with the latest apps and sites that my kids have access to. All the good and all the bad is always there, but I'm not always there. That's why I want to tell you about Hero Parental Control. Hero is a high-tech tool that helps you stay ahead of the game. Activity from all of your family's devices can be filtered, monitored, and even tracked via GPS from one easy dashboard that you have. You can adjust all your filters. Material that might be healthy for a teen can be harmful to a young child. It works on all of your devices, including your mobile. It's easy to set up, intuitive to use, and it stays up to date with ever-changing technology. It's going to make the internet in your house appropriate by your standards, not what society says. So enjoy the good and block the bad. Go to blazehero.com. That's blazehero.com.
This is
the Glenn Beck Program.
Welcome to the program. May I suggest that we all take a deep breath and we all stop playing politics for a little bit, and we all look at how fast this world can change. We are the scariest State Department statement I've seen possibly in my life, maybe perhaps since Reagan and the Cold War, was issued yesterday or the day before, which was the 2-line State Department warning of North Korea. We have said everything that the United States has to say. There is no more to talk about. Okay, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, that's
your State Department.
That's sobering.
That's their job to talk. And when they say there's no more to discuss,
they've also said all options are on the table, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. But the State Department is what the State Department is saying is all options are on the table, and that means military.
Oh, yeah.
And the other line of there's nothing else to discuss means we've handed this over to the military now.
We've done enough talking.
Yes.
Talking is not going to solve this.
It's not going to solve this.
That's certainly how people are taking it.
And it's true. I think that's true. He's too nuts. What are you you're gonna talk to a madman?
So are you sincerely for a first strike?
I'm certainly willing to consider it. I'm certainly.
I do not want to. No more. I want to.
No more war.
No more.
Well, yeah, but
besides
that's
all
sometimes out of our hands.
Yes, of course. And look, I think he is legitimately that crazy.
I do too.
He's
killed his brothers. Oh, yeah. He's killed his uncle.
Yeah, but first strike, America becomes, it's just more of the same. Then we go through,
and you got China. China could be sucked into that.
Right. We have another decade of everybody saying bad things about America and that we're the warmongers. I don't think he might, but I don't think he can get to the United States. I would hope that we have...
Not the mainland. I don't think they can hit the mainland.
No. I would hope that they have some sort of missile defense over there that we do that would be able to take something out so they can't nuke Japan or South Korea. Right. But they might.
Well,
I just don't want to... I don't want first strike. I don't want to accelerate this at all.
Leader 11 is in town right now, right?
Right.
So, maybe that's what they're
definitely
hopefully, let's just take care of this. It's on you.
Well, that's what Trump keeps saying. If China doesn't take care of this, we're going to have to. And he's right about that. If China doesn't take care of it, we're going to have to.
And this is an issue that's larger than this, because the Syria thing goes on as well, where they just the other day said, hey, you know what, whether Assad stays long term, that's kind of up to the Syrian people. And so many people see that as, well, okay, well, now we have a different stance on Syria. We are no longer involved, or at least it's not a priority of ours to remove Assad, which then, after the chemical weapons attack, they've said kind of the exact opposite. They've all come out and, Trump said yesterday, I've seen this and it's changed my mind. I've seen these pictures, it's changed my mind.
Okay, but wait, hold it just a second. By going in and attacking Syria, you are attacking Russia. You stand a very good chance of engaging Russia. We are on the eve of global war.
If we're not careful.
Right. Between Syria with
Fortunately,
Russia.
We've got a level-headed man in the executive office.
Look.
That's the good thing right now.
Well,
right?
Look at the bright side. Would it have been any better with Hillary Clinton?
No. It'd be worse with her.
No, it would have been predictable with her, though.
Yeah.
The issue with because we've talked so much about what Trump believes and what he doesn't believe, and he's always, we've talked about him changing his mind and all these things. The defining characteristic of Donald Trump, more than anything else in all these conversations, is he's just a very emotional man.
Yes.
He is a very emotional dude.
Well, he's a counterpuncher.
I believe that there's enough people around him that will say, Mr. President. Now, if he's so emotional that they can't stop him, that's one thing. But I believe he's he's at least a sober man, that somebody can slap him across the face and say, Mr. President, we cannot make this move emotionally.
Well, McMaster being in there and Bannon not being on the Security Council is really a great sign. There's some good signs.
Yes. The problem is that, global war, giant war changes everything. And as we saw, it matters who you have in the Oval Office. With George W. Bush, we got the Patriot Act. You go to war. We go to serious war. Every time we've gone to war throughout our history, you've had rights suspended, especially on the press and everything else. You could change the internet. Did you see what happened in Germany with Google yesterday?
No.
There's a new $50 million fine for fake news. Germans have voted yesterday, the German parliament voted yesterday to impose a $50 million fine on companies like Google if they engage in fake news, if they don't stop it or something like that. That's really bad. Really bad. Mm-hmm. Because what they'll do is they'll just shut down everything. If they're responsible for it, they'll just start closing down those valves. Well, who's to decide what fake news is? Mm-hmm. Especially in this. Was Benghazi fake news?
Yeah, and is climate change skepticism fake news?
Right. What is fake news? What is fake news?
According to a lot of our leaders, it is.
It sure is. It sure is. We are on the eve of the entire world changing, and damn it, constitutionalists, wake up to your principles.
The Glenn Beck Program.
Mercury.
The Glenn Beck Program.
888-727-BECK. I would really like you to get on the phone right now and tell us, what do you think we should do about North Korea and Syria?
Do you wait and just see what happens?
Do
you negotiate continually?
Are you? I mean,
preemptive strike? What do you do?
Tell me where you stand. What do you want to do?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to do a preemptive strike. I just think that might be the most prudent step at this point. I don't want to wait until they're firing off nukes at South Korea, Japan, Hawaii. I don't want to wait and see if he'll do it, because we just had that defector that said, "Oh, he'll do it. Oh, he's going to do it."
But there's always defectors from these places that say that. They said the same thing.
A lot of times they're right.
But a lot of times they say Iraq has mass quantities of
so can I
of mass destruction, and we got that from a defector.
Here's what just going through
and intelligence agencies.
Yeah,
every intelligence agency.
But a lot of that
world.
Intelligence came from defectors. And believe me, I actually totally buy the North Korea thing. I think he is the one leader on earth who's actually that guy.
Yeah,
even Iran, I don't believe necessarily would do it. They believe in a religious fervor that might eventually get there. He's a different guy.
I believe ISIS believes in crazy things, and they are trying to bring the end of the world, to wash the world in blood, to bring the 12th Imam. I do believe that ISIS is religiously out of their mind and committed to it. I also believe that Kim Jong-un is out of his mind, just bat crazy. However, Pat, where was the shot heard around the world? What one was that?
Concord,
right? Mm-hmm. And it was Concord. You'll be better on this than I am. Wasn't it Concord where the town met, and they met in the church, and it was the minister who said, the British are coming, everybody grab your guns, and we're going out on the field, and if they cross this bridge, we're not
going to allow them to get to the. They were, I think that if I remember right, the British were marching to
confiscate all the guns.
Confiscate guns.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they said, we're not going to let them do that.
We're not going to let them take our guns.
But do you remember what the minister said?
Not specifically, no.
God will not be on our side if we fire first. You are not to fire first. If they fire upon us, go ahead. But we are not to fire first. And they waited. And I have that same feeling that if we are the first to fire in this, it's not going to go well. It's not going to go well.
Yeah, there's a slight difference in that was a musket bullet, and we're talking about a nuclear weapon that'll kill a heck of a lot more people. But I understand. I understand your point. I do. And usually all through the Bible, the Lord doesn't favor first strike.
No.
So,
and I just don't think that we're in the position we don't have any credibility in the world. We are on everybody's enemies list. We have a president who is viewed by the rest of the world as crazy or a hothead or unstable or whatever. And this one could go into global war. I mean, in Syria, we go into Syria and we strike Syria, and Russia sends up their planes. Do we engage, or do we have Russians turn us around? And if Russians are turning us around, are we not then in a Cold War with them? I mean, what do we do?
I'm for staying out of Syria.
I am too.
I don't want to
I'm
mess with
clearly.
Oh my gosh, that's their
Syria.
mess. I don't want to get into that.
I think the most valid question here when you think about these issues is what's new on Netflix? Because if you can get in that world, none of this even happens until the EMP goes off.
Let me go to John in Florida. Hello, John.
Kim Jong, whatever his name is now, is probably 3 walls short of a house. So he is crazy beyond crazy. But if you're going to deal with him militarily, you're going to have to make sure you hit every single missile installation he has. And not only that, you're going to have to take him out as well, which crosses a whole new diplomatic line, which serious issues there worldwide. And not only that, you have to deal with China. And right now, China's in the position where they love this. They love the fact that he ties up our resources, ties up our time, ties up all our money. If you did something like a military strike, I've heard people say, well, possibly our economies are so tied, China might be able to deal with us. If you think China would not in a second turn its economy upside down to collapse us, you're crazy. All you have to do is look back in the 60s and the Cultural Revolution. China is all about China and not about the individual. It's been that way since the Qin dynasty to the communist dynasty.
Although
if you think
it's different now because China's become their own market now. China has developed with this hybrid capitalism, communism thing they're doing. They've developed their own market, so they don't necessarily need the rest of the world as much as they once did.
Well,
they've got 700 million people who can now buy products.
Russia and China are also gobbling up gold in the last few weeks, and they're getting ready to dump the dollar. And
Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, this is how's Bitcoin doing?
It's been going up like crazy over the past couple months, largely because of high purchase levels from China.
Really?
I'm telling you, this is something I said maybe 15 years ago. I don't believe these people who say China, needs us, so they'll never do anything. I said at some point, China is going to say, you know what? Cut your losses.
This is worth it.
This is worth it. Cut your losses. And the whole world changes. Remember, in 1913, America was still kind of an outpost. We were not a world leader by any stretch of the imagination. By 1919, we literally controlled the world. Without anybody knowing it, we controlled the world because we controlled the world's financing. We had all of the world's gold here in Fort Knox. We don't have that anymore. All we have is a military. But nobody seems to ask, how did the government that had a navy that could patrol a country so large that literally the sun never set on their empire? That requires an enormous navy. How is it that navy that controlled the world and policed the world in 1919, in 20 years, was begging us for ships?
Woodrow Wilson.
Right. Because
made them sink their own ships.
Exactly right. Because we said to the world's most powerful military, you know what? You don't control it anymore because we have all the resources. We have all the money. So we think you're actually the problem. Yeah, Germany causes a lot of problem too, and we've already destroyed them. So now it's your turn. Sink half of your navy. If you don't think that we're in that position where the world is about to tell us exactly what to do, you're fooling yourself. The world has changed under your feet, and it's about to officially change for everybody to see, and war is the fastest way to it.
Real quick, Len, as we're getting updates, Devin Nunes will temporarily step aside from an investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election. Probe will be taken over by Michael Conaway, Trey Gowdy, and Tom Rooney. That's been quite a topic of conversation over the past few weeks, and now he is stepping down, at least temporarily, is the report from Politico.
What do you think of that?
I mean, I think honestly, like and part of this, he's admitted that he hasn't handled these steps particularly well.
Why did the Trump administration, why did the people in the Trump administration invite him over, brief him, give him all the stuff, and then have him go brief the president, not them? I don't understand that. There's just something weird about that.
Very strange.
Very strange.
And they certainly, I don't think Nunes handled it well, but he was very much hung out to dry a lot I think on this. And he really had nowhere else to go. The speculation is that there's just a lot of people in the White House who do things in ways that no one has ever done them, and that's part of the reason they got elected, but also part of the reason for all these problems. I mean, a lot of this is just inexperience, it seems like. I mean, people don't know what they're supposed to do. They try to do things outside of it. They're constantly praising themselves for going outside the system, and then when the system breaks and everyone panics, I mean, this is why you're having so much turmoil and changes right now inside the White House.
There's a couple of big things that are happening at the White House that we need to talk to you about. Something that we worried about and quite honestly predicted that would happen. It's happening now. You need to be aware of it because I think profound changes are coming as a result of it.
This is the Glenn Beck Program. Mercury.
My sister-in-law just had a baby boy, and that's great news. But with that great news comes a lot of cost. And she works in the medical industry, so, you can guess her student loans are gigantic. These things can completely wipe you out if you don't get a handle on them. How do you do that? Credible.com. Credible is a private online marketplace of lenders. It's simple. You just go there, answer a few questions, and right away you get real rates, not ranges of rates, from multiple lenders competing to refi your student loans at historically low rates. Your data is secure. It's not going to affect your credit. And thankfully, you will not get spammed. Credible saves the average student almost $19,000. 19 grand for a new car. Take a great vacation every year. Why not try it? For a limited time, Blaze listeners get an extra $200 when they refi with Credible. Go to credible.com/blaze. Credible.com/blaze. It's credible.com/blaze.
This is the Glenn Beck Program.
Let me go to Bruce. Hello, Bruce. You're on the Glenn Beck Program.
Hey, guys. Quickly, I was going to tell you, Jeffy's my favorite because when I was as immature as he is, I got picked on too. So be careful. When he grows up, he's going to kick your butts.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Well, he's already like 75, so we don't have to worry about.
He witnessed the Civil War.
Right.
I don't think there's going to be any more growing up. Growing out, yes, but not growing up.
Thank you, Bruce.
But at any rate, retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, saw combat both Iraq, Afghanistan, and you're going to hate this too. But the parallels are eerie. Remember what Reagan did in Libya. Not only are they eerie, they're even stronger than they've ever been before. 2 aardvarks dropping 1,000-pounders in Libya quieted down the Middle East for many years.
Yes.
Before
that is true.
This got kicked up again.
That's true. Well, but there is one difference. Muammar Gaddafi was a survivalist. He was not a crazy man.
A little bit nuts.
I completely disagree. Look what he did to his own people. The parallels are not only parallels, but they're sharper than they've ever been before. This guy is even more crazy. This guy is even easier to take out. A couple of well-placed 500-pounders, you don't need to take out their army. You don't need to take their Air Force. Mm-hmm. You take out their leadership, and it's over. And it's quiet there again for a long time.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bruce. I appreciate it. Let me go to Dave in New York. Hello, Dave.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Wow. I'm very nervous, so bear with me. But this whole thing in Syria, it really bothers me, the fact that there's so many, like, John McCain's, Lindsey Graham's, they're crying out for a strike immediately when if we take out Assad, not only will it turn Syria into Iraq 2.0, it's Russia's already there. They have an air base. Mm-hmm. They have an like their airplanes were flying with the Syrian planes when they dropped these bombs. I've seen. Now, Did the Syrian planes fly and drop a bomb? Yes, I won't argue with that. But what did they bomb? They bombed a warehouse, a depot, an ISIS-held depot. Assad is winning the war. Damascus or Aleppo is his again. Damascus is his again. Why in the world? And why would Russia, right? The Russian army is fighting this for Assad. Why would Russia allow Assad? I think this was a horrible accident. I think the chemical weapons were in the depot, and I think they bombed them not knowing there were chemical weapons there. There are reports that ISIS has chemical weapons. And you also remember in 2014 or 2015, I think it was, Kerry said that, and the UN confirmed it, that all of Assad's chemical weapons were removed. That right?
Well, I will tell you this: if you throw John Kerry and the United Nations in for credibility, I got to side with you.
And this is the Russian line, by the way. This is exactly what the Russians are saying happened. I'm not saying that Dave is a Russian agent or anything, but I mean, this is what they are.
They're saying they bombed the warehouse and the chemical weapons.
They're trying to say it was it was ISIS.
Well, that's impossible because we removed 100% of their chemical weapons.
No, they're saying that ISIS is making the chemical weapons.
Yeah, so they're saying Assad had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
That does not seem to be the belief of the intelligence community.
No.
But
I don't happen to buy into that, but I'm with you on this, Dave. I don't want to get in
Syria.
I don't want to get involved in Syria at all.
I don't want anything to do with that
at all. All right, Dave, thanks for your call. I guess there's no comment on that one. Let me go to...
just so you guys know,
Andrew in Oregon.
InfoWars and Ron Paul are saying it was a false flag. So we should be all set.
Okay, good. Andrew.
Hey, I'm not really worried about North Korea at all, just because I was in the military. I was in the Navy stationed in Hawaii on an Aegis destroyer. We have the capability of knocking down anything that they send at us. They don't have enough to overwhelm our systems. I'm more worried about if they do shoot something at us and we retaliate, that's going to end up picking China off, and they're going to strike back at us, and we're going to get in a big war with China. That's my biggest worry on that.
This meeting with President Xi, XI, which I like to call him President 11, from China today at the White House is critically important. We are technologically advanced. I can't imagine that we couldn't stop. They have 8 nuclear weapons. 8. I can't believe that we couldn't stop those from launch. Let's not strike first.
This is the Glenn Beck Program. Mercury.
This is the Blaze Radio on demand.
2017 is going to be a volatile economic year. We may see politicians throughout the world attempting to control central bank policies. Several renowned financial analysts have warned that political interference in central bank policies may mean our economic misses of inflation and growth targets. Gold is an international currency that can't be issued or controlled by governments. If you don't have the only hard currency that has outlasted every politician and every failed idea of governments for centuries, you need to speak to Goldline right now and learn how easy it is to add gold to your portfolio or IRA. Now is the time to diversify your financial portfolio by adding gold. Call 1-800-913-GOLD. Buying real gold is easy and fast at Goldline. And you're going to be happy that you finally made the call. 1-800-913-4653. Goldline also offers price protection against short-term market fluctuations on qualifying purchases. So buy with confidence. Read Goldline's important risk information and find out if buying gold is right for you. Call Goldline 1-800-913-4653. It
is now illegal in Russia to share an image of Vladimir Putin as a gay clown. Okay.
How long? I mean, we've been fighting for that for 20 years.
I know.
We were saying this is the most important thing that can happen in this world today.
That's right.
And they finally have done it.
It's amazing how freedom of speech is being chipped away at. And one way or another, there's fines that are now being levied. $50 million fine in Germany for companies like Google if they're engaging in fake news. Well, how do we define fake news? What are the ramifications of that? And here in our own country, witch hunts. I want to talk to you about Bill O'Reilly right now.
I will make a stand
fusion of entertainment and enlightenment. This is the Glenn Beck Program.
Somebody that I have known for years and have really grown to really truly respect is being raked over the coals in the press right now. People are trying to destroy him by getting his advertisers to run for the hills. Guess who's involved in this, Stu?
I don't know.
Color of Change.
Oh, the same.
Oh my gosh.
Ben Jones organization?
Yeah, how do we know about Color of Change?
They were out in front of trying to lead a boycott against you back in the day. Yeah.
How did that boycott work?
Well, they tried to intimidate with their 14 social media followers would continually tweet, call, and intimidate companies. Companies not wanting to deal with it would just move their advertising from our show onto another show and still pay the same exact amount, and it wouldn't affect the business at all.
But that really was the worst of the worst, and there was very little of that actually went on.
Yeah, a lot of it was, that was the most extreme part. Yeah. Most of it was, advertisers that never advertised on the program, they would try to make announcements of that they had dropped our show when they were never on the show.
For instance, can you think of a cheese company?
I can think of a cheese company.
You can think of a cheese company. Would you like to talk about the cheese company?
I can if you want me to talk about the cheese company.
That's fine. I just know that Stu has harbored some very deep feelings about
a particular cheese company.
That never advertised on our show. And
yeah, because I could actually, and these things are weird because companies don't want to be involved in controversies, even if they don't believe the controversy is real. Even if they just don't want to deal with it. They make cheese, for example. So I understand sometimes these companies will be like, just don't put me on that show right now. I don't want to be in the news. I get that. To make public statements in which you are, we cannot be associated with hate or with that type of stuff, which they were doing to us, and there's, many companies are doing the same thing today. That's just infuriating, especially when they know it's not true. Taking a stance like that.
You didn't know that it wasn't true. Some people still think that I am the reason for all of the hate in the country.
You seem to be leading that brigade lately, but
no,
I know.
So anyway, when I worked at Fox News, this is what the left did to me. They tried really hard. It actually didn't work. Unfortunately, Fox News tried to make the case after I left that it did. And that's going to come and bite them in the ass now. But it actually didn't work. When I was there, and I've said this many times, Bill O'Reilly was the most honest, fair, most intelligent, and intellectually curious guy in the media I have ever met. I don't agree with everything that Bill O'Reilly says. I don't agree with some of his stances. He always seems to be behind because he's not willing to predict or project. He's willing to look at what's a fact today. That's what, I mean, we've had this argument. I'm like, Bill, come on, man. Look, here's history. Here are the facts. Where do you think that? And he's like, that's not my job, Glenn. So I don't necessarily agree with him on things. And quite honestly, I remember the first time I met him and I was on his show. I was just starting Fox. And, he has quite the reputation of being a bulldog. And he is I think he's 6'5" or 6'6". And he's at this little teeny desk. Those studios and television look a lot bigger. Objects in the mirror appear to be bigger than they are, or bigger than they are. They're really small, and you are in Bill O'Reilly's face sitting at that table. And I remember they were counting him down, 5, 4, and I reached over and I grabbed his hand and I said, please don't kill me. And because you don't go into a room with Bill O'Reilly knowing. And we became friends. But we became friends because we were both intellectually honest with each other. When we were flying on a plane and he probably, Well, no, I think he'd be fine with this. Oh boy,
these stories always work out well.
I
don't see why they would have any problem with this.
I said to Bill,
this is a private story that was told in confidence, but let me just say it right now on the air.
So we were on a plane, and I said, Bill, thank you for being so kind to me. There's no reason you need to be kind to me. And he looked at me and he said, stop it. And I said, what? And he said, Glenn, you're jet fuel. You're hot right now. That helps me. It helps by having you on the show. It helps me, continue to expand and boost my ratings and expand my audience.
It's for interesting,
and he
compelling
said
content.
Right, and he said, and it's compelling. It's good stuff. I'm not doing you any favor. And I thought, because I knew that to be true, but I didn't think anyone would ever admit that. That's the kind of guy I know in Bill O'Reilly. I know he is intellectually honest and so buttoned up.
Tough, but fair.
Yeah, he does not, he gets
Bill.
a reputation of being tough because if you're not cutting it, he is. He's writing every word he says. He's doing all the hard lifting on his own show.
It's almost like when you talk to him, you're in a zone where there's not spin occurring.
So he's doing all the hard work himself that he's supposed to do. If you're not bringing your full game, he is not a fan of yours.
And we've spent a lot of time with him. We went on tour with him several times. We toured the country with him. Bill O'Reilly never gave any indication
that there's any of this
kind of behavior.
Stuff. Never. Not only did we not smell smoke, we never saw smoke. And quite honestly, when you're out with somebody as famous as Bill O'Reilly, you watch. Mm-hmm. You want to see their character. Bill O'Reilly was always professional. We talked about this yesterday in a meeting. With everybody, we have a large team. We did our tours. When Bill and I went out, it was my company that produced those tours. So it was everybody, from the people that took him to the airport, to the people that took him home, to the people that tucked him into bed at night. It was all my people. Not one person said anything about Bill O'Reilly other than, that guy's a professional.
To be clear, none of our people tucked him into bed at night.
Yeah, okay, that was probably a poor choice of words there. But we were with him. Somebody from my staff was with him the entire time. Well, and no one said anything but, wow, he's buttoned up.
And we've seen that you hang out with, you go and you're doing business with a lot of different people. I mean, think of one recent example that we've all dredged through of one particular person on a bus with Billy Bush, and that sort of commentary that
kidding around kind of
obviously
blue humor.
Yeah, and we never saw anything even
like
that.
Not
even jokes,
never
not even passing comments, nothing like that at all. Which is,
you'll notice that I never said anything in defense of
Roger Ailes.
Roger Ailes.
Yeah.
I never made this statement about Roger Ailes because I never saw it, but it did not surprise me. Let's just put it that way, because there was enough joking and conversations that I thought, that one kind of made me a little uncomfortable. It did not surprise me. Bill O'Reilly, I will be shocked, of course disappointed, but shocked if he was engaged in any of the kind of monstrous stuff that he is being accused of. I know what it's like to be attacked. And I am not doing this as a favor to him. I am not doing this because I'm a friend of his. I believe he's a good man who's being attacked. I could be wrong, but never an indication from us. Settling a lawsuit is not an admission of guilt. Let's make that one really clear. Because you settle a lawsuit, for instance, I can tell you I was in a lawsuit recently. How hard did I fight not to settle that, Stu?
Very hard.
Yeah.
To the point where you were annoying everybody around you.
And who was I fighting against?
Your own companies and people that were associated with you, because they all wanted to get it.
I have several contracts with several big companies, and they're like, just settle the damn thing, make it go away. The main argument came from the insurance company. Just settle it. Just settle it. We can settle it for a fraction of the cost. but it's wrong. Just settle it. So because you settle does not make is not an admission of guilt. It's usually a way to just spend less time and money. Just move on with your life. Now, as a guy who drives about $100 million in revenue every year, that makes you a target. I know it, because people do not understand that when they come to work for us at the Blaze, they'll be like, oh, no, it's easy. You just do this. And we're like, no. We call it jokingly the Glenn Beck tax. No, you don't understand. You're working with Glenn Beck. There's no like, oh, no, we can do this. No, because we're a massive target. And people don't understand that until they work here for a while. As a guy who's been number one for 20 years on cable news, do you think some people are going to try to take him down? Especially on the Fox News network, especially that he is viewed as, if he leaves, Fox is destroyed. Without Roger Ailes, who was the bulldog at the door, like him, hate him, whatever, he was effective. And he kept the vampires at the door, sucking the blood out of life, the lifeblood out of Fox News. How it survives without Roger Ailes is beyond me. How it survives without Bill O'Reilly, and you don't think the left understands this? The media is never going to give Bill O'Reilly or anyone with his effectiveness and his point of view a fair shake. I would like one from time to time. I am being accused now that I am stomping on people's freedom of speech. That is so far out of every reality, and some, very few, listeners, the people that claim to be my listeners, believe that. Well, you were never my listener if you believe that, because you cannot doubt. You knew nothing about me. But that's the way.
You should ask Amy Holmes about that.
Yeah, that's the way the world works. That's the way this press works. Mm-hmm. That's the way the left works. And quite frankly, that's the way the right works when they want to destroy somebody. But the left is very, very good at it.
And you're not, this is not you taking, going after people who are making accusations. I mean, no. This is just you talking about someone you know. You don't know everything about every person and every interaction, obviously, and it's not to go out.
Bill O'Reilly deserves the benefit of the doubt.
He gets it from me, surely.
And until it
innocent until proven guilty.
Yes, until it has been proven guilty.
That's certainly not the assumption here by many.
Well, and to be fair, it's
Maxine Waters said last night he should go to jail.
Should go to jail.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Should go to jail.
And a lot of this has to do with the stuff that happened with Roger, because people now see Fox as anything you say about them and that atmosphere will be believed. That's not fair.
There are things that I saw and I witnessed and things that happened at Fox that truly turned my stomach, truly almost destroyed my hope in people. But I will tell you, if it wasn't for Bill O'Reilly, I think it would have been destroyed. I walked in hearing all these stories about Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly is none of those things. Bill O'Reilly was buttoned up and professional every step of the way. He is uber smart. Now, maybe again, I don't know. I'm not with him every second of the day. I have no idea. But boy, the Bill O'Reilly that I know and that I saw working side by side for a long time, there is no doubt in my mind that he's just smarter than that. And I would hope that even though I disagree with Bill O'Reilly, particularly on Donald Trump, and he has said things about, never Trumpers or whatever the category he might put me in, and he has not even had me on his show since the Trump thing began. I don't care. I know who he is. He did not ask me. I did not engage with him on, so Bill, doesn't matter. We have to stand up for what we believe is right, and we have to stand up for people who are coming under fire until they prove otherwise. By the way, for the record, there are far more facts and witnesses and issues about Bill Clinton, who seems to get the benefit of the doubt all the time. Good luck, Bill. Stay strong.
You're listening to the Glenn Beck Program.
Mercury. Are you as excited about your kids being online on the internet as I am? I feel like I'm always playing catch up with the latest apps and sites that my kids have access to. All the good and all the bad is always there, but I'm not always there. That's why I want to tell you about Hero Parental Control. Hero is a high-tech tool that helps you stay ahead of the game. Activity from all of your family's devices can be filtered, monitored, and even tracked via GPS from one easy dashboard that you have. You can adjust all your filters. Material that might be healthy for a teen can be harmful to a young child. It works on all of your devices, including your mobile. It's easy to set up, intuitive to use, and it stays up to date with ever-changing technology. It's going to make the internet in your house appropriate by your standards, not what society says. So enjoy the good and block the bad. Go to blazehero.com. That's blazehero.com.
This is the Glenn Beck Program.
Let me tell you, we have Calvin Coolidge, part 3 of our series on Calvin Coolidge. If you have missed any of these, you've got to go to the website and really get the serial, glennbeck.com, serials, Calvin Coolidge, or just join coming up in a minute. He is the best president of the 20th century and top 5 presidents of all time.
The debate has actually been, is he the greatest president in American history?
Yes.
Yeah. It's not that is he one of the best of the 20th? No. Without a doubt, the best president of the 20th century, and perhaps number 2, I think number 3, best presidents of all time. Do you agree with that?
He's definitely top 3.
Yeah.
The only ones I think you could maybe put ahead of him are Washington and Lincoln.
Yeah. So, and nobody knows about him. So
that's
you will, coming up in just a few minutes.
Pretty incredible.
By the way, I want to make it clear that we should use Hillary Clinton's standards on every victim should be believed.
Every accuser should be believed.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
Actually, no, every accuser should be heard.
Taken seriously?
Taken seriously.
Absolutely.
Every accuser should be taken seriously.
But what Hillary Clinton said is actually un-American.
It is.
Right.
Because it's the
that every accuser,
the presumption of innocence.
Yeah, every accuser being believed means that I agree. I'm telling you right now, you're right. He is guilty.
Yeah.
Or she is guilty.
It's crazy. That's a crazy standard.
No, I need to listen to you and say, okay, all right, let's take you seriously and literally, and now let's go find the facts.
It's also a standard that Hillary Clinton did not employ in the mid to late 90s.
It's not a standard. The standard that they are using right now is this on Bill O'Reilly is the standard that they all fought against with Bill Clinton and still fight against.
Yeah.
They fought against it during the campaign.
And, the Maxine Waters of the world, they care nothing about the women in these that are even accusing. They don't care. She cares about taking Bill O'Reilly out. Whether there's any information there or not. She doesn't like him. She wants him gone and, in fact, wants him in prison. As we found a congressman saying she wants a private person in prison without a trial.
Silent Cal, Calvin Coolidge. Next.
The Glenn Beck Program. Mercury. The Glenn Beck Program.
2 presidents that almost nobody knows anything about. Harding and Coolidge. In 1923, America lost its 6th president to die while still in office, Warren G. Harding. He had served half of his first term, but what a 2-year period it was. He and Vice President Calvin Coolidge had, through swift, decisive actions, not to mention non-actions,
catapulted the nation out of a deep depression in just 1 year, leading the Depression of 1920 often being referred to as the Forgotten Depression. Across the country, from President Harding's untimely death in San Francisco, the vice president was visiting his Vermont family home. It was a comfortable yet simple homestead with no electricity and no telephone connections. It was so isolated from the outside world that a messenger had to be dispatched to the house to alert the vice president that he was now the commander-in-chief. Quickly awakened at 2:47 in the morning, August 2nd, 1923, by the dim glow of a kerosene lamp, his father, a notary public, swore in his son, Calvin Coolidge, as President of the United States. Worn out from the day's events, the 30th president took his wife's hand, and together they walked back upstairs and went back to bed. There would be time enough after daybreak to reflect on the momentous occurrence that had just swept them into history. Coolidge had been successful and very popular in every political office he had ever held, and he had a lot of them. He was city councilman, city solicitor, clerk of courts, Massachusetts state congressman, state senator, governor, vice president, and now the president of the United States. The only election he ever lost was an early run for the local school board, which he lost because he had no children at that time, and the people wanted to see that his kids would be affected by every decision he made. Upon taking office, there were some serious scandals that were starting to take shape involving Harding's cabinet appointees. David Petruzza explains how he handled them.
It's very important right off the bat is to restore faith in the federal government, which had been tarnished very badly by the scandals of the people serving under his predecessor, Warren Harding, where the Secretary of the Interior is going to go to jail, Albert B. Fall. The Attorney General, Harry Daugherty, is going to be indicted. There are massive scandals in the Veterans Administration. And what does Coolidge do? Does he try to cover them up? Does he make excuses for them? No.
So with the backdrop of the Harding scandals, how did Coolidge restore America's faith in the executive branch?
He appoints two special prosecutors, a Democrat and a Republican, and he says, go to it. And when that Harry Daugherty fellow, the Attorney General, refuses to cooperate with Congress, he tells him to hit the road. And in doing just a few simple, fair, honest things, he turns around the American public's opinion of Washington and of Republican administrations. And that is no small accomplishment.
This was the character of Calvin Coolidge. As governor of Massachusetts, he believed that taking on the unions during the Boston police strike would ruin him politically. But he did it anyway, and he became wildly popular as a result. He put principle over party and his own ambition, and the people loved him for it. Coolidge was a man of few words. In fact, his nickname back then was Silent Cal. As he boarded the train to head back to Washington, D.C. to take his office, he was asked if he was ready to be president of the United States, and his only reply was,
I believe I can swing it.
And swing it he did. Obsessed with shrinking the size of the federal government, Coolidge met repeatedly with his budget director. After he and Harding slashed the budget from $18.5 billion to $6.4 billion, Coolidge cut it in half again to $3.3 billion. Can you even imagine, especially with us now living in a time where we can't agree on a 1% cut? He addressed the nation over the new medium called radio. He was the first president to do so, and he laid out his tax plan. Here is the actual voice of Calvin Coolidge.
The expenses of the government reach everybody. Taxes take from everyone a part of his earnings and force everyone to work for a certain part of his time for the government.
Coolidge had a way of personalizing the issue for Americans.
It represents all the pay of 5 million
Obviously, Coolidge was a substance over style type of guy, though his dry sense of humor was pretty memorable. Famously, he didn't talk much if he didn't have to, and once at the White House dinner party, a woman sitting next to the president tested this truth. She leaned in and she told the president,
I bet my friend that I could get more than 2 words out of you tonight.
Coolidge's reply, you lose. And though he certainly didn't have the communication skills of some of the politicians who would come in after him, what he did have was a steely constitutional resolve. The top tax rate when he first took office was 73%. By 1925, he had slashed that to 25%. And in 1923, the nation received what most economists consider full employment, 2.4%. Coolidge was so concerned about cutting the federal budget that he even got down to the type of mail bags carriers used on their delivery for the Postal Service. The ones they were using were striped. That was more expensive than just the canvas bag that he insisted they switch to. By 1924, President Coolidge had gained enormous national popularity. Economically, the Roaring Twenties were now underway. Socially, he had granted American citizenship to the Native Americans and had stood up to the KKK. Under the racist Woodrow Wilson administration, the Klan experienced a massive rebirth. But Coolidge sought to shut them down. Of the Klan's motto, America First, Coolidge said,
The generally expressed desire, America first, cannot be criticized. It is a perfectly correct aspiration for our people to cherish. But the problem is how to make America first. It cannot be done by the cultivation of national bigotry, arrogance, or selfishness. Hatreds, jealousies, and suspicions will not be productive of any benefits in this direction. Here we must apply the rule, and by toleration, I do not mean indifference to evil. I mean respect for different kinds of good. Whether one traces his Americanism back 3 centuries to the Mayflower or 3 years of the steerage is not half so important as whether his Americanism of today is real and genuine. No matter by what various crafts we came here, we are all now in the same boat.
If that last line sounds familiar, it's because a generation later, civil rights leader Martin Luther King would borrow that line from Coolidge in his own writings. Why is Calvin Coolidge not celebrated as one of the greatest presidents in American history? In 1924, with the election looming, the Republican Party begged the popular president to run for his own term. And finally, he agreed. But on June 30th, just a few weeks after being officially nominated by the GOP, Coolidge gathered his family, wife, Grace, 17-year-old son John, and 16-year-old Calvin Jr., to pose for photographs at the White House. It was a formal session of photos, so by the time it ended, the 2 teenage boys couldn't wait to change out of their uncomfortable suits that they had been wearing for far too long in the summer heat of Washington, D.C., and into the attire suitable for a tennis match on the White House courts. Calvin Jr. was so anxious to get out to face his brother on the tennis court that he wore no socks with his tennis shoes. The 2 boys engaged in spirited and a hotly contested set in the burning D.C. sunshine. But the constant rubbing against his exposed feet on his shoes soon caused Calvin Jr. an uncomfortable blister on one of his toes. So the pair stopped their match a little early and went inside the residence. The next day, the pain from the blister intensified and Calvin Jr. developed a very high fever. His toe had already become badly infected. Calvin Jr. was in a lot of pain, and his father, the president, was so overcome with worry that he could barely execute his presidential duties. He would conduct meetings on one end of the White House complex and then quickly retreat to his son's bedside every chance he got. On July 3rd, 1924, his condition became so serious that they took him to Walter Reed Medical Center, where the best doctors in the nation converged to try to save the president's son.
This is the day before, the time before penicillin, when sepsis infection could prove fatal, and it does. And the scene of Calvin Coolidge at his son's deathbed is incredibly heart-wrenching, and he is quite shattered by this loss of his son, as anyone would be. He writes in his autobiography that all the joy of being president departed at that point.
This would be a turning point for not only the Coolidge family, but also the nation. President Coolidge would never be the same again. It was said from then on he likely suffered from clinical depression. The loss of his youngest son was more than he could bear. But Coolidge somehow pressed on anyway. In November, he swept to victory in a gigantic landslide in a three-person race, taking 382 electoral votes to just 136 for Democrat John Davis, and 13 for the third political candidate, Robert La Follette. The popular vote was massive as well, with Coolidge winning 54%. Yet, as civic-minded as he was, as committed to making a difference for his country he had always been, Calvin Coolidge derived no pleasure from winning the election to the highest office in the world.
After his son died, Coolidge still got through all his tax cuts after Calvin died, but the mood was different.
Through his personal tragedy, America's 30th president continued to work hard for the American people. His accomplishments, his setbacks, and his legacy in the next episode.
Tomorrow on the Glenn Beck program, in Chapter 4 of our serial on Calvin Coolidge, you'll learn about his legacy. Listen live or online at glennbeck.com/serials.
This is the Glenn Beck program. Mercury.
My sister-in-law just had a baby boy, and that's great news. But with that great news comes a lot of cost. And she works in the medical industry, so, you can guess her student loans are gigantic. These things can completely wipe you out if you don't get a handle on them. How do you do that? Credible.com. Credible is a private online marketplace of lenders. It's simple. You just go there, answer a few questions, and right away you get real rates, not ranges of rates, from multiple lenders competing to refi your student loans at historically low rates. Your data is secure. It's not going to affect your credit. And thankfully, you will not get spammed. Credible saves the average student almost $19,000. 19 grand for a new car. Take a great vacation every year. Why not try it? For a limited time, Blaze listeners get an extra $200 when they refi with Credible. Go to credible.com/blaze. Credible.com/blaze. It's credible.com/blaze.
The Glenn Beck program. 888-727-BECK.
Good friend of the show. We haven't seen in I don't know how long. Bruce Feiler. Remember, Bruce wrote the book. He's written several really good books. One of them is America's Prophet, the story of Moses and how Moses is the prophet of America. The Moses tablets in the hands of the Statue of Liberty, and how our pilgrims thought they were completing the journey of the Israelites here, how George Washington
going to the Promised Land.
Yeah, felt that same thing. He is really brilliant. Then he did a PBS special. What was it? Living the Bible, or what was that? Remember, he went over and he lived in the Middle East and took you through the Middle East. Walking the Bible.
Walking the Bible.
And now he's written a new book called The First Love Story, Adam, Eve, and Us. Why Adam and Eve Still Matter. And the insights in this are pretty remarkable. He says Americans living alone is higher now than ever before in history. And he says, let's go back to the Adam and Eve. Should man be alone? No. And what does that do to us? What does it do to us as a society? How do we view women? How do we view sex? Really a fascinating book. He's going to be with me tonight at 5 o'clock for the full hour on the Blaze TV, and he's going to join us here in just a few minutes. Bruce Feiler, The First Love Story, Adam, Eve, and Us. Next.
Mercury.
This is the Blaze Radio on demand.
2017 is going to be a volatile economic year. We may see politicians throughout the world attempting to control central bank policies. Several renowned financial analysts have warned that political interference in central bank policies may mean our economic misses of inflation and growth targets. Gold is an international currency that can't be issued or controlled by governments. If you don't have the only hard currency that has outlasted every politician and every failed idea of governments for centuries, you need to speak to Goldline right now and learn how easy it is to add gold to your portfolio or IRA. Now is the time to diversify your financial portfolio by adding gold. Call 1-800-913-GOLD. Buying real gold is easy and fast at Goldline. And you're going to be happy that you finally made the call. 1-800-913-4653. Goldline also offers price protection against short-term market fluctuations on qualifying purchases. So buy with confidence. Read Goldline's important risk information and find out if buying gold is right for you. Call Goldline. 1-800-913-4653.
We are very excited about this hour. We are going to tell you a little bit about what's happening in the White House. I want to show you a pattern that I think you need to understand, and the reach out to Hollywood and the important jobs that are now going to the family you need to be aware of. Also, Bruce Feiler is with us. Bruce is a dear friend of mine who I met probably 7 years ago, something like that. And he has written some really important books. He's done it again. This time it is The First Love Story, Adam, Eve, and Us. Why the heck does the Adam and Eve story matter? We begin there right now.
Fusion of entertainment and enlightenment. This is the Glenn Beck Program.
Hello, America. Welcome and welcome to Bruce Feiler. How are you, Bruce?
It's great to be with you, Glenn. I'm just happy to be here and nice to see you looking so great, this wonderful room. So thank you for having me.
We were, the first time we met, you were riddled with cancer, didn't know if you were going to make it, and you wrote one of the most honest books. It just grabbed me by the heart and the throat. I don't even remember the name of it.
The Council of Dads.
Council of Dads. And you were putting together a council in case you died. Here are I pick this guy because of these values. Yes. I pick this guy because of these values. It was a fascinating study. How are you, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm well, cancer-free, and, you know, they say cured. I'm not sure I like that language, but healthy, walking around.
And then you wrote America's Prophet, which was another book that just riveted me because it really told our American story and put it into real context, important context. You're a big star and you're on PBS and you write all kinds of, #1 bestsellers. And this one is about Adam and Eve. And I'm fascinated, especially since you're here this week, because I thought a lot about Adam and Eve and my relationship with my wife. Just last week, I was pondering Adam and Eve for some reason, and how much that story has to teach us. And then, I start reading your book, and, you've taken a little pondering and taken it the full 100 yards. Let's start with the Sistine Chapel.
So this journey in some ways begins in the Sistine Chapel. I mean, my process really begins at my kitchen table. As I have a working wife, I have children. As you know, my kids are almost exactly the age of your children. And we talk a lot about the changing ways that men and women are relating to each other, right? This moment of sort of tectonic change. And I write a lot about this in my last 2 books, 100 New York Times columns, and mostly it's about technology or the latest app or we're going to do it differently. But, as I care a lot about the ancient world and the Bible, spent a lot of time in the Middle East, and I can't help wondering, is there nothing from the past that's not worth preserving? Mm-hmm. We go to the Sistine Chapel, day one. It's a business trip for my wife, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take my sleep-deprived daughters to the Vatican. It doesn't go well. They're complaining. My feet hurt. This is boring. Yeah. I'm like, get into the Sistine Chapel, girls. I'm going to blow your mind. They look up, and one of my girls looks at Adam and God, the fingers, right, across the sky, and says, that's only men. Where am I in that picture? And her identical sister looks up and sees, by the way, my mother's an art teacher. I never noticed this. Under God's arm is a woman. She says, is that Eve? And that's when I realized I had one of those moments that you've gone on these journeys, writing these things out of nowhere. This story has been at the heart of every conversation about men, women, and sexuality for 3,000 years. And as crazy as it sounds, maybe it has something to teach us. And you mentioned walking the Bible earlier in the lead up to this in the last hour. And so I'm an experientialist. Like, I like to go to places. Like, I climb Mount Ararat, cross the Red Sea. But where am I going to go, right? I mean, you can go to the Garden of Eden in Iraq. But what happens is I start tugging on strings, Glenn, and this whole opportunity. At every generation, we've looked at this story, right? So Michelangelo and John Milton and Ernest Hemingway and Mark Twain and Beyonce and Bob Dylan and Pope Francis. So I get to go on like this incredible scavenger hunt all over the world, trying to look at how people have explored this story and try to figure out what lessons it can hold.
So let's go there.
In marriages today.
I'm going to have you on for an hour tonight on television, and I invite you to watch. It'll be a fascinating, trust me, Bruce is a fascinating guy. And I want to talk about your journeys and the different things that you found as you went on these journeys and the way everybody looks at it. But help me out with why does it matter? What can it teach us today? Because right now, I think we are living the Kipling poem, and if you don't know it, look it up, The Gods of the Copybook Headings. We are living those times right now where everything that was known to be true is just thrown out. Right. And we're just making it up and saying, this is true. We have no idea if that's true. So we throw things out like Adam and Eve.
Yeah. So I think, look, I was interviewed in Time Magazine this week on the last page, 8 questions with Bruce Feiler, and one of the questions they asked me was, coding class or Bible study? Okay? And what I said was, for my daughters, they like math, and they believe, like all kids, that every bit of knowledge is behind that screen. If they look long enough into that computer, they're going to know everything. And I was like, you know what? It's rare, and it's kind of counterculture, and it's almost outrageous today to say you can learn something from the past. So I said Bible study. To me, in some ways, this book is about, the first love story is about, let's remember that there is wisdom in the past. You mentioned this in the lead up to this conversation, Glenn. Positive psychology, the happiness movement. What has it said to us? Relationships matter. Okay? You and I have been connected. We don't see each other all the time. We are connected. We have that connection. Happiness is other people. The big threat is loneliness. Young people, middle-aged people, the opioid crisis, suicide crisis. What's the first thing God says about human beings in the Bible upon looking at Adam? It's not right for humans to be alone. The Bible gets there 3,000 years before social science. And if you're one of those people who thinks science, who needs the Bible? Here's a beautiful example where that's not true. And by the way, if you're the kind of person who says the Bible has everything, not science, also not true. You put the two in dialogue with each other. So I actually think that the story itself is a beautiful story about resilience, forgiveness, togetherness. They make missteps. They have problems. They can call it sin if you want to, but they stay together, right? They start together. They leave Eden. They stay together. They have 2 children. One of them murders the other. They reconcile. They come back together, right? We know what's key to a relationship. You've been married a long time, as I have, going on 15 years in my case. Being able to mend a rupture, right? Heal a broken heart. Get over our mistakes. Admit mistakes. That's key. Boy, do Adam and Eve do that. And by the way, their mistakes were a lot bigger than ours are, okay? Also, there's a kind of balance in the story between independence and interdependence. Like, you need to be together, but you also need to be yourself, right? I think of this Kahlil Gibran quote that you may know, right? Love is the antidote to loneliness as long as there's aloneness within it, right? We have to be ourselves, but be connected. And then to me, the number one thing that I've learned, and as I've been out there in the country now talking about this book and people responding to it, is that love is a story we tell with another person. It's co-creation through co-narration. the storyteller in you, can really relate to this. Like, you and I are in a relationship, we have to tell a story together. And we hit a bump in the road or we have a downturn, we have to write a new chapter in our story together. And that's what I think is powerful about the Adam and Eve story. And is that, think of all the other figures in the Bible, by the way. Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, David, Solomon, Jesus, Paul. What do they have in common? They're all singles. Adam and Eve, they're a couple, right? Not Adam, not Eve. Adam and Eve. They're reminding us that that connection is at the start of the human line. It's very powerful. And this especially matters to women and to the men who, along with women, are rewriting the story. Because this story was weaponized against women for centuries.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Because I think that's an important thing to get to. Is, at least in my faith, we don't look at Eve as, the evil one.
Right.
Or the weak one. But a lot of people do, and they're still carrying around original sin. I mean, it had to be.
Right.
What did you find on the
I think
weaponization of Eve?
Yeah, so when you go back to the original story, they're created in Genesis 1, both in God's image. What's true for the man is true for the woman. And there's this kind of seesawing of power. But what happened is that organized religion got a hold of the story, and they used it. They essentially weaponized it. I think that Adam and Eve are victims of the greatest character assassination the world has ever known. And then what's happened is, we now live in a world where women kind of are dominating religion. They're propping it up. They care more. They're involved more. They take the responsibility for passing on values, and they weren't going to do it if this story was going to put them down. Here, I don't know if you know this story. As you know, it's in the back of my book. If maybe you knew it before, I didn't. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, at the birth of the women's movement in the 1840s, she's out there with Susan B. Anthony fighting for property rights and voting rights for women. And they kept hitting a stumble. Why? Because someone would say, the Bible says, Eve was created second. Or the Bible says you can't vote because Eve is created from Adam's rib. And she realizes her biggest problem is not preachers, it's not politicians, it's preachers. So if women are going to have equality in this country, she's got to rewrite the Bible, and she does. In 1895, she writes a book called The Woman's Bible that goes back to the Adam and Eve story, back to Genesis 1, and says, look, our Creator has us, formed at the same time. Don't tell me women are not equal. The book is a landmark. It's a bestseller. It's a disaster. Okay, the organization that she started with Susan B. Anthony gets together, and they kick her out. Okay? So the reason that we all know Susan B. Anthony, and she's on our coinage, is because Elizabeth Cady Stanton, the most famous woman in America at the time, takes on the most famous couple in the world and gets flattened, absolutely destroyed. It was not for a century till the story was told again, because that's how powerful this. I think of it as the negative branding of Adam and Eve. You got 3,000 years of negative branding. But the reason this matters is because today, can anybody deny that men and women stand equally before God? No. It was a 30th century battle to reclaim this story. And why does it matter? Because that's what we want to tell our daughters, that you can stand before God, that you deserve to have a loving relationship, that you can overcome it. We owe this to Adam and Eve.
It does make me a little nervous about rewriting the Bible, though. Doesn't that sound like that?
No, I don't think
I'm not saying rewriting the Bible. I'm saying reread the story. Yeah. Go back to the Bible. Go behind the layers of tradition. This is what, this is what
Here, explain this, because this will really help. Yeah. By the way, we're talking about the new book, The First Love Story, Adam, Eve, and Us. Bruce Feiler is the author. Explain this, because this is just little things like this that you point out in your book I think are so important. How was Eve made? From a rib, right?
Not correct.
Not correct. Go ahead.
It's a Selah, okay? So the Bible, it says she's created from the Selah. Basically, by the way, the ultimate Hollywood meet cute, okay? So what you have is you have Adam. You have the animals are there in Adam. So Adam, God parades the animals before, and you have this swipe left, swipe left, swipe left. He doesn't want to come away with a rooster or a cowboy or a hippopotamus. And he looks up, and God says, you know what? It's not right for you to be alone. I'm going to create one of you. So he falls asleep, and he wakes up, and there's a girl, by the way, and he's happy. This is the one, right? Bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. He's ready to go. And by the way, very positive. The two of them are naked and no shame, sex positive. They're having a good time. It's almost like the honeymoon moment. But what is she created from? It's not the rib. It's a Selah in Hebrew. 38 times that word is used in the Hebrew Bible. It means side or side room. So they stand side by side. Why do they pick the rib? Because they said a rib is small and insignificant and given to putrefaction. I'm talking church fathers, I'm talking the rabbis, because women are small and insignificant and given to putrefaction. I mean, even if you put dirt by the side of a road, Adam's created by the dirt, right? Put dirt by the side of the road. It doesn't smell. Put a rib. It starts to stink. That's why women have to wear perfume. I mean, you cannot believe what is there. Even if you know there was patriarchy, you just cannot believe. But when you look at the story, Adam is into her, she's in. Even when they're kicked out of Eden, God blesses them, protects them. Remember, what's the first commandment God says? Be fruitful and multiply. He needs them to succeed, and they do succeed. It is a success story, even with the misstep, even with the sin. We can't let that overshadow that this has got to get the biblical story. But to your point, Stu, this is what I want to say. Okay, you know, who has done more to popularize American history than you, Glenn? I'm serious. I'm not. I mean, I know how you responded to America's Prophet. We just heard a session on, Calvin Coolidge before we came on here. The reason that we can have this conversation about religion today in this country is because of the rewriting of religion. Because our forefathers, our founding fathers, said there's going to be a separation of church and state. What did that mean? That means there was not going to be a state-sponsored religion. So all the places where there's state-sponsored religion in the world, except where there are, let's say, dictators like Iran, and like in Europe, those religions have all died. Our religion is still here. Why? Because it adapted. Because it was able to meet people where they were and change and say religion was going to be relevant to their lives.
And become enlightened. I mean, so many of these stories were written this way or spun this way for control.
Because you're talking more about religion than, because there's a separation maybe between religion as it stands, as an organization, and people, what they've done with this original truth. And the original truth.
Exactly. Right. You study the Torah, which I would love to actually really study, like Jewish people do. Christians are so far behind the eight ball. They have no concept of what the Old Testament really says. You read it outside of its original language, you lose 80% of it. You really do. Do you think I'm exaggerating, Bruce?
Well, I think, look, when you actually go back and read it, I mean, first of all, where are people today? Religion is very fluid in this country, right? Half of Americans change faith in the course of their lives, right? 4 in 10 Americans are in an interfaith marriage. We're in a time of fluidity where you kind of make your own faith. It's harder, but ultimately it can be more fulfilling. You mentioned the Sistine Chapel at the outset of this conversation. What's the center of the Sistine Chapel? Not God and Adam, okay? That's the fourth panel. The fifth panel, the one in the center, it's not the creation of Adam, it's the creation of Eve. You have Adam lying to the left, God to the right, and Eve occupies the center of the Sistine Chapel. So Michelangelo did more than anybody to elevate Eve and to kind of fight back against this tradition of downplaying Eve. And when you go back and you look at the story, you see that they're basically over the 30 centuries that this story has been told. It was used to downplay women, then elevate women, and now men and women, we're all struggling with it. This story is the roadmap for how to do it.
I cannot wait to have a long conversation with you today, 5 o'clock on the Blaze TV. Bruce Feiler, the name of the book is The First Love Story, Adam, Eve, and Us. Really, really worth it. And join us for this conversation because you're always fascinating. And I've got something that I don't know if you know, but that you'll be very excited about to learn if you don't. But if you do, we're going to have even a greater conversation. Bruce Feiler, thanks for being with us.
The Glenn Beck Program.
Mercury.
Are you as excited about your kids being online on the internet as I am? I feel like I'm always playing catch up with the latest apps and sites that my kids have access to. All the good and all the bad is always there, but I'm not always there. That's why I want to tell you about Hero Parental Control. Hero is a high-tech tool that helps you stay ahead of the game. Activity from all of your family's devices can be filtered, monitored, and even tracked via GPS from one easy dashboard that you have. You can adjust all your filters. Material that might be healthy for a teen can be harmful to a young child. It works on all of your devices, including your mobile. It's easy to set up, intuitive to use, and it stays up to date with ever-changing technology. It's going to make the internet in your house appropriate by your standards, not what society says. So enjoy the good and block the bad. Go to blazehero.com. That's blazehero.com.
You're listening to the Glenn Beck Program.
The author of Walking the Bible and Abraham, New York Times bestselling author and good friend of the program, Bruce Feiler, is with us. The first love story, Adam, Eve, and Us. He's going to be on with me for a full hour. Before you walk out of the studio, I want to ask you one question. Do you believe the Adam and Eve story is an allegory, or do you believe it actually happened?
First of all, I believe there's truth in it. That's the most important thing. And the second thing is I go with the dean of biblical archaeologists who said to me, I don't know if Adam and Eve existed then, but I know they exist now. They're on the Sistine Chapel. They're in Paradise Lost. They're in all of our lives. So they have become real, and that, I think, is what matters the most. So if you come on this journey, I don't think at the end of it, you're going to think that they don't matter anymore. You come on this journey, I think you'll be surprised, you'll learn something, but in the end, I think you'll be uplifted because the story is still ripped from the headlines today and at all of our kitchen tables.
Okay. Bruce Feiler joins me tonight, 5 o'clock, only on the Blaze TV. You don't want to miss it. The first love story, Adam, Eve, and Us. Back in a minute with what's happening at the White House.
This is the Glenn Beck Program. Mercury. The Glenn Beck Program.
Welcome to the program. I'm so glad that you're here. I want to talk to you a little bit of what happened in the White House yesterday. According to sources at the White House, Steve Bannon threatened to quit several times.
Oh, no.
I know that would be horrible.
No, don't say that.
In the words of those around Bannon, there is a big battle that America needs to be aware of between, quote, the nationalists and the Democrats. You'll notice that conservatives are not even in the equation here.
Sounds like a series between the Yankees and Red Sox.
Yeah.
There is no winner. There's no one to root for. Cowboys, Redskins. Ugh.
That's
what that's. I mean, honestly, like can you
say the Cowboys would be the one to root for there? But
they're actually awful. Actually, the worst team in American history. In case you were concerned with that, I'm sure Bruce Feiler would back it up. If he wrote a book on that, he'd say the Cowboys suck. So,
you realize we're surrounded by millions of Texans.
Mm-hmm. And we live in Dallas, Texas.
We live in Dallas.
Yeah, this is what I'm willing to go down on.
Of Dallas fans.
I'm willing to go down on so many things, not on that. Yeah. I mean, go Dallas. Anyway, the nationalists versus the Democrats. That is really a no-win situation. And because the nationalists are, I'm sorry, they're populist nationalists, they're going to go the way the wind blows. And that is not what Americans were asking for. Now, there's a new study out, and Stu can talk about this, that is talking about health care, and it is truly frightening what has happened to the right. We'll get into that.
What right?
Yeah, there is no right anymore. But we'll get into that here in just a second. But I want to talk to you about not only was Bannon pushed out yesterday in one area, Mercer, who is the big funder of Breitbart, she convinced Bannon to stay. He was threatening to walk out. If he is fired or he walks out in anger, the party is over for Donald Trump at Breitbart. I don't know how he's going to let him walk out the door because he doesn't want Breitbart and Steve Bannon against him. But we'll see what happens. Now,
by the way, Bannon is denying these reports, saying the latest report I saw was that he said something like, I love a good gunfight.
Oh, yeah. He does.
He was staying and fighting. Apparently.
Well, so the gunfight is between Bannon and Kushner.
Kushner, yeah.
So Donald Trump's son-in-law, Who's going to win?
It's not a battle you'd want to fight.
Yeah, who's going to win? I think Ivanka and Jared are probably going to be on the winning side there. Now, why is that a problem? Because they are liberal Democrats. Elites. Mm-hmm. They are Democrats through and through.
Socially, in particular, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I don't think that they're necessarily unfriendly to business, but yes.
No, that's not what I was preserving the nation for. I want business to be preserved.
Yeah, it's an important part of it. I mean, economic freedom is an important part of the foundation of this country. Yeah. So I would agree. Right. But yeah. I think what you're saying here is you have, you've got the Cowboys versus the Redskins. Where are the Eagles, a team we can root for? The Constitutionalists, where are they? Where are the Philadelphia Eagles for us to all come together? The eagle soaring through the sky, where is that for all of us?
Shut up. So Jared Kushner, here's what he is in charge of so far. Middle East peace. He is the one that is to try to find a way to bring Middle East peace. He is also in charge of government reform. He is also heading up the White House Office of American Innovation. He is also heading up the opioid crisis management team. He is also heading up the criminal justice reform. He is also the liaison to Mexico, the liaison to China, and the liaison to the Muslim community. So I don't know when he's going to sleep.
That's a busy guy, yeah.
Wow. Now, who did he just hire? He just hired a PR executive for the White House role. Mm-hmm. Who is this guy? Well, this guy is going to be running the communications for the Office of American Innovation. He is a guy that I believe did some work for Hillary Clinton years ago. He is a lefty. He is a guy who is, he's not a conservative. And he's a guy who worked for me for a very long time, and I have nothing but great things to say about him.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
Josh Raffel.
Yes, Josh Raffel. He is a great guy, and worked for me for a very long time, and now is working for Blumhouse, the film production company in Hollywood.
And then going to the White House. Yeah.
Going to the White House.
It's interesting. I mean, I take it as a positive thing in that, like, one of my big criticisms over Trump, if you may have noticed over the time, is I didn't believe him when he said, we're going to find the best people. And there's a lot of examples where he has not looked for the best people. And I've been very concerned about that. I mean, Josh is the best. And bringing in somebody like that into the White House, I think, is a real positive. And when you look at the two wings, if this is a real battle, and again, these are press reports, you never know with this stuff. But if it's a real battle between Kushner and Bannon, there are no conservatives here to argue for, as you point out. That's not possible. Of those two, the one I'm pretty sure isn't going to make the world explode is the Jared side.
Yeah, I'm for Jared's side.
I mean, Jared is, again, I would not agree with him on everything, but he's a smart guy. Pretty much everybody agrees with that. And he's balanced. And I don't think he's going to write any stories about, renegade Jews, in his papers.
Nope.
As Bannon has done. There's a lot of stuff that's gone on at Breitbart. And look, when you're talking about a situation with the world and the state it is, out of those two, you're not going to get hardcore conservative policies out of this. That's not what this is about.
Well, I don't think we're headed that way. Yeah. Let me give you, we've talked about this for the last couple of days. Stu has a new one that is out, a new study of Trump supporters. Yeah. Now remember,
this is shocking.
Here's what I'm concerned about. And I said this from early on. You might get your Supreme Court justice. You might. And I said, but it's going to be a hard fight. How much political capital is he willing to spend on the right person? That's yet to be seen.
Although we did just happening moments ago, the Democrats did filibuster. So that's confirmed. So Gorsuch is now, they're going to have to go nuclear option to get him through. that that vote is just happening. So we expect probably by tomorrow that will happen and he will be confirmed. But we don't know.
Yeah. Now let's see. I mean, and I think I've given him praise for nominating and standing with him so far. It was a great pick so far. We'll see what he does when he gets the job. But my fear was he wouldn't stand up and he's going to start getting beat up, which he is, and he's going to start moving to the left because that's where he naturally is comfortable, and more importantly, it's where his family is comfortable. And he's surrounding himself with family as the decision makers. They're going to influence him and pull him left. So you start to have the lefties that are influencing and pulling him there. On top of that, where is the conservative viewpoint? Here is the latest on Trump voters.
Incredible. The question is, your opinion on health care reforms. Should we expand Medicare to provide health insurance to every American? That is the single-payer plan we've talked about all this time. It's the plan that Bernie Sanders proposed in the campaign, not Hillary, Bernie. Okay.
Too radical for Hillary Clinton.
Here's the support levels. Trump voters, 40% favor somewhat or strongly. 42%, 47%, sorry, I read the wrong line. 47% oppose. Now, of course, Clinton is 80-8 in favor of this. Look at this among ideology. This is liberal voters, 82-9 favor. You'd expect them to favor it.
Single payer
health
socialized medicine, which we were told 8 years ago was crazy. We were never going for. That's not what the plan was.
Nope. Moderates, 60-15. 60-15 among moderates. Conservatives, 41-43. They are split. These things, what this indicates is there is no right. There is no conservative movement.
No.
A split among people who identify themselves as conservatives? That is incredibly shocking. Republicans, it's, so do the parties. Democrats, 75-12 favor single-payer healthcare. Independents, 58-21 favor single-payer. According to this is Economist YouGov poll. Republicans, 36% support it. It's
worse.
It's worse. 46% support it.
Oh my gosh.
38% oppose it among Republicans.
So what do you think the president's going to do?
In a moment if he loses this, if he gets in, and this is the problem I have with Trump, right? I mean, this is the problem with populism.
Yep.
It's like when something happens, whether it's an economic downturn or he just needs a win,
you give the people what they want.
And the Democrats will go along with it, and enough Republicans will go. Look at these numbers. Enough Republican senators. You think they have the balls to hold out against a policy like that? Against a Republican president? There's no way. If it was a Democrat, they'd at least give the outward-facing opposition to it. When it's a Republican, they're not going to do that. And that's what makes me so nervous.
Well, Hillary Clinton would have given us universal health care. And congratulations, I bet we get it as well. And now this, except it'll be a conservative idea this time.
And Republicans would have opposed it if it came from Hillary. Whether they had the balls to do it when it comes from Trump, man, I have seen no signs of that so far. No signs of that. You want to go outside of the Freedom Caucus, you want to go outside of the Justin Amash's of the world, where have you seen this opposition? You see occasional opposition to Trump from the left side from Republicans. But man, you never see it from the right. And you have the balls to stand up against this with these sorts of numbers when you've got 60 and 70% of people saying it's the right thing to do. I mean, you're going to wind up with a policy that's you're going to get Canada, you're going to get Great Britain, you're going to get one of these disastrous healthcare nations, and without us fueling. Remember, these countries that deal with this, with the universal health care, have horrible health care in their countries. However, it's a lot better than it would be because our capitalism is developing the medications, developing the solutions, and then they're getting them for free. We are not, if we're not here to do that, there's nothing left. We're the only ones doing it.
Innovation practically stops.
Look at the Nobel Prizes. I mean, it's terrifying.
Glenn Beck program.
888-727-BECK.
Mercury.
My sister-in-law just had a baby boy, and that's great news. But with that great news comes a lot of cost. And she works in the medical industry, so, you know, you can guess her student loans are gigantic. These things can completely wipe you out if you don't get a handle on them. How do you do that? Credible.com. Credible is a private online marketplace of lenders. It's simple. You just go there, answer a few questions, and right away you get real rates, not ranges of rates, from multiple lenders competing to refi your student loans at historically low rates. Your data is secure. It's not going to affect your credit. And thankfully, you will not get spammed. Credible saves the average student almost $19,000. 19 grand for a new car. Take a great vacation every year. Why not try it? For a limited time, Blaze listeners get an extra $200 when they refi with Credible. Go to credible.com/blaze. Credible.com/blaze. It's credible.com/blaze.
The Glenn Beck program.
All right, so I'd like to ask the boys, what is it that you wanted to get to today that we haven't gotten to? What are the stories that just cannot wait until tomorrow?
I like the story of, it could wait till tomorrow, but I like the fact that Westport, Connecticut, just did a white privilege contest. And it was won by a black student. And they say, you know, there's a lot of controversy around this, and we just didn't expect that. Just the fact that it says white and privilege for some people is all they need to see, and all of a sudden we're race baiting or trying to get people to feel guilty. That's not what it's all about. And then you read what was spoken in these white privilege. Of course that's what it's about. In Westport, Connecticut, where the median income is $152,000, you're going to start doing white privilege contests? What hypocrisy. What hypocrisy.
No, but it'll help them sleep at night.
Yeah, won't it though?
Because they'll say, okay, sure, I have advantages. I've moved to a town that is almost 100% white.
Almost all white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm open-minded, and I
yes.
I
feel guilty about
I flog myself at night.
This is the Glenn Beck program. Mercury.